Okay, let's go real quick with Fetterman.
One of the best things I've ever done as a senator, I voted for the aid for Israel, for Ukraine, and Taiwan. I mean, like for me, that's a global struggle against democracy. And obviously, Russia was the aggressor. And now I'm old enough. I say this before. I'm like, when I grew up, I'm like Red Dawn. I'm like, you're cheering for the Wolverines. And Russia was the evil empire, and it is.
All right, we are back with the senior Democratic senator from Pennsylvania. It's John Fetterman. I've done a wardrobe change, in your spirit. I am like your number one apologist about wearing the hoodie on the floor. No, there's no need to wear a suit for these people. All right, so you just keep doing you.
Well, the truth story behind the hoodie thing. It's like I never went to anybody or Schumer, anyone to ask for that. Like that just. I read about that. I'm like, I never asked for those kinds of things. I was never gonna like just give speeches, hoodie there. But for me, I'm a comfort guy, and I'm also a lazy man, and I don't have to iron it. It's just easy to wash it, and I'm ready to go. And so right now, and plus it's hard to find suits too.
Well, I'm sure for somebody your size, you don't want to be at the big and tall shop. Well, I appreciate it. I wanted to have you on. You really spoke out this week in defense of trans athletes, and I wanted to start there, and then we'll get into some Trump stuff. But you wrote this: the small handful of trans athletes in Pennsylvania are in a political maelstrom. They deserve an ally, and I am one. Empty show votes or cruelty on social media aren't part of a thoughtful, dignified solution. What made you jump out so aggressively on that, and what do you think a more thoughtful solution would be?
Well, because for me, it's been born from my commitment to never. To pick on anybody. I mean, when I was very young, I got bullied and picked on, and that really kind of shaped a lot of my experience. And I'm not part of those communities, LGBTQ kinds of things. But now, like that really started when I was a small town mayor, when gay marriage was illegal. Literally, it was illegal. Right. And then there was an opportunity. There was someone started to sign those things. And I said, 100%. I got on TV. I'm like, I'll sign them. Come with me. And that was illegal. And then the governor at the time threatened to have me arrested. And then I said, well, hey, you know where I live. Bring it. And then I signed for those things. And that was the first. I was at the time the only official in Pennsylvania willing to sign those. And they all became legal. And that was back in 2013. And so it's the same kind of thing. It's like marriage equality. I really support that. And if I was convicted of that crime, because technically it was a crime, I'm like, well, hey, then that might be the end of my political career. But, I'll never, degrade somebody based on who they love. And now for this, and I'm not dumb either. I know the polling. And now a lot of people are saying it's absurd kinds of thing. And now, so for me, that's when I felt like it's a time to really say, look, now for me, it's about I'm not going to bully or I'm not going to degrade those. And now, we're at 13 million people in our state, and it's a small number of people that are involved on that. And I have a 13-year-old daughter, and she plays basketball, and I'm not afraid that she's going to get mowed down. But for me, it turns into an issue that is more appropriate to be handled on a very hyper local level, and not dropping them into a meat grinder and national lines and weaponizing that. And I know I'm not dumb. I know there'll be commercials saying, Fetterman's for they, them, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, bring it in. I'm not afraid to stand for on my side on that, because there's these kids, for me, how difficult that it is.
I think there's a way to phrase this, and I don't know if it's just because of his aura or whatever, but I feel like this phrasing is probably some of the best phrase you can have and just do it. Like, if somebody comes up to you, what do you think about trans, blah, 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 blah. It's like, hey, listen, you have your school superintendents, you've got your school boards for your local communities. Like, go to your school boards and vote on it. If you don't want it, I think you should have the right to vote to not have it. And if there are a lot of parents that don't care and they do want it, then they should vote to have it. It's up to them. It's the school boards. It's run at the local level. You guys want local education. You don't want the federal government to dictate curriculum or curriculum choices. Vote for it at your local level and then do what you want with it. Boom. Easy.
And now, in this kinds of a world, nuance goes to die. And having a more meaningful conversation on that, it's difficult right now. So for me, that I made that choice, and I could have tried to keep my head down, like a lot of my other colleagues decided to do that. But for me, even though I know it's politically unpopular, I think that's the kind of time to do that. And I do believe that a person's character is defined by the things that they're willing to do, even if that moves against their political interests.
Well, I appreciate that. Maybe I should have got married in Braddock, because it was like not till 5 years later that I got my gay marriage. But it is just one more thing on the nuance of this. It's just worth saying. Martina Navratilova, not a liberal. I saw her tweeting at you on saying that I don't know, it's different for teen girls. Like and Gavin Newsom, big progressive, said that he is breaking with Democrats on youth sports.
Yeah, well,
So,
I mean, he's, in my opinion, he's going to get the worst of both worlds of that. I mean, he's going to be seen as just flip flopping, and he's going to anger like his progressive base, and we all knows why he's doing those kinds of things. And then on the other side are going to know why he's making those kind of changes. So for me, like,
this guy votes Republican? No. This is John Fetterman. He is a Democrat who, I don't want to call him like a Mansion or Cinema, because I don't think he's made those types of voting decisions yet. But a lot of Democrats don't like him because he's willing to be more bipartisan, but he's hearing out the Republicans, and some people consider him a traitor. I don't know if I do or not yet. I go back and forth on him, but generally my opinion of him, I think, is positive. But
it's like he's going to own the worst of both of those worlds for that.
Yeah. To me, the clearer one is the trans-military thing. That's the one that I like you. I see the nuance of the youth sports issue.
I did a video. I'm like, look, I mean, it was not. There was a time when it wasn't controversial. There were desegregating the military was incredibly controversial at the time. Yeah. I'm not going to serve. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to bunk with black soldiers. And now, of course, that needed to change. And then there was. I'm old enough to remember when "don't tell, don't ask" thing. Yeah. And now it's like, regardless of who you love, I mean, that doesn't make you more lethal or more suitable to be a soldier based on who you love. And now that was really front and center with the Hegseth nomination. Well, what about women in combat? And now based on their gender. And when you have gender neutral kinds of things, and then it shouldn't matter based on your gender. And now, so regardless on how you identify, that doesn't make you any more or less lethal. And as long as you're able to meet those kinds of a standard, for me, it's about the dignity of the soldier. And I'm not going to degrade that based on their race, obviously, on their gender, on who they love, and not how they identify. And that's why I did that video, knowing that it's not politically popular. I guess so. That's why I decided to lean on that, because I think it's part of that. It's part of that narrative, that arc of what was really controversial and unthinkable based on race. And now we're along that arc.
Yeah. I think the military one might become popular, framed the right way. The idea that like a draft dodging guy wearing makeup is going to ban people who volunteer to serve based on their gender identity. It's sick. It's gross to me.
Yeah. Well, it's like it was considered controversial. It's like based on who you love. Yeah. I don't understand that, and I'm like, for me, like for I say to my conservative friends, it's like, it's about freedom. It's those are the fundamental kinds of things on
How did people take Newsom's stance on trans people to be flip-floppy? Didn't he say that he supports trans people in everything but sports, since it's an issue about fairness, but he supports them in everything else? Because the problem the Democrats had, remember a long time ago I said, why is it that these niche issues end up becoming dominating in the media cycles? One is because conservatives weaponize them. But then the second part is because it's not about how many people are willing to defend a particular thing, or rather, it's not about how many people are willing to exhibit a particular thing. It's about how many people are willing to defend that thing and how many people are unwilling to renounce that thing. Like, those three things come together to give an impression that a thing might be way more of a big deal than it actually is. But the only way you can combat it is by either not defending it or disavowing it. So one big issue that a lot of Democrats had is I don't think even 5% of Democrats are okay with sex reassignment surgery for children. That number is going to be absurdly low. But because politicians were so scared to say anything about it, Republicans have basically an opportunity to create the impression that, oh, actually, all Democrats support this, or most Democrats support this, or Kamala Harris supports it, even though she definitely doesn't, or most likely doesn't, or wouldn't do it as a policy position at least. But you have to be willing to come out and say something about it. And if you're too afraid to disavow any of it because you're worried that some progressive is going to cancel you or whatever, then you're kind of fucked.
I love the freedom to love who you love. And now if you have that kinds of internal conflict about your gender, I didn't experience those kinds of things, sure, but I know people that have, and they are coming from a very sincere place, and they are trying to live, their truths. And I don't think that they don't deserve to be ridiculed or turned into pariahs. And definitely, teenagers especially, I'm not going to be part of dropping them into that meat grinder.
What'd you make of the Zelensky meeting on Friday and the way that the president's been treating our ally Ukraine, cutting off intelligence, and now I guess a report this morning potentially getting rid of legal status for Ukrainian.
Well, for me, I've been unapologetically pro-Ukraine. I'm like, one of the best things I've ever done as a senator. I voted for the aid for Israel, for Ukraine, and Taiwan. I mean, like for me, that's a global struggle against democracy. And obviously, Russia was the aggressor. And now, when I'm old enough, I say this before. I'm like, when I grew up, I'm like Red Dawn. I'm like, you're cheering for the Wolverines. And Russia was the evil empire, and it is. It is. If you disagree with Putin, 2 days later they find you because you fell out of a window. I mean, I absolutely didn't agree with what happened in the White House, but I didn't jump online and started yelling because I don't think. But two things can be true at the same time. I certainly didn't appreciate what happened in the White House, but it's also undeniable that Ukraine doesn't have, he doesn't have all the cards. I mean, what's true now too? The president is the commander of chief, and he has the ability to shape and really alter the contour of that. And if we're moving towards peace, I don't want to inflame that situation.
But I mean, we're not. Come on, we're not moving towards peace. Trump is not. Putin does not want. What evidence is there that Putin wants peace? And Trump has not asked Putin for anything. What does Trump ask Putin for as part of peace?
No. I think Putin is a killer, and of course Russia is our enemy always, and that isn't going to change. But my hope is that it is moving towards, because I do not believe that the war in Ukraine is sustainable. Yeah. And I have met amputees. I have met them, and they're getting all back to the front line. And now, if you're sending those wounded men there, it's a terrible situation. And if there's
I guess it could be possible because it's maybe the situation's not. But is that true? Is Ukraine sending amputees to the front lines? Is that
pass for peace? Then I don't agree those kinds of terms necessarily.
Yes,
and I fully support seizing. There's about 218 billion of seized Russian assets, and I'm absolutely they need to seize that. And those are the kind of assets that should rebuild it. We should rebuild that, and I don't think we should extract those kinds of funds, and repaid our nation. For me, I thought it was always a bargain to break and humiliate the Russia military.
They volunteered. Oh, I mean, if you're volunteering to go back, okay, never mind. I thought they meant reconscripting amputees. That would be pretty brutal.
Military, and demonstrated their lack of capabilities.
Talking about not jumping online and being alarmed, you wrote after Trump's whatever that was, not State of the Union speech, the address to Congress, that your colleagues participated in a sad cavalcade of self-owns and unhinged petulance. Said we are becoming the metaphorical car alarms that nobody pays attention to. I don't know though. Aren't we in car alarm territory? Isn't it time for alarm?
What I'm saying though is of course we're there are things that are concerned, but without realizing the circumstances and part of the reasons why we ended up in this place. I mean, I'm a big believer in American democracy, and right now when we're 53 and 47 in the Senate here, and they own the government right now, and of course they're going to lose the House. I hope they're going to lose the House, so they're going to do a lot of these things. I don't agree with a lot of those things, but for me, do you think what they did during the SOTU, if you thought that was smart messaging, if you landed, I mean, I
didn't think it was smart. I agreed with you on that. But I guess I'd just say this. Trump, if I look at your phrase, unhinged petulance. I can't think of a phrase that better describes Donald Trump than unhinged petulance. All he did was call Joe Biden Dementia Joe. He yelled and he screamed and he posted and he bleated. He did embarrassing things. And in the end, he convinced a lot of people. I don't know. Isn't part of politics telling people about all of the terrible things that the opposing party is doing? I guess I didn't really think that what happened at the State of the Union was particularly good, but I think that Democrats should be louder, not quieter. What do you think about that?
What I'm saying though is what I witnessed. What I witnessed wasn't helpful, and that wasn't moving the ball for Democrats. Yeah. I don't believe that. And if you can't just all stand and cheer for a 13-year-old boy that got, I mean, I have a 13-year-old myself, got over cancer. I mean, that's the wrong message on that.
I agree. Can't you do both?
And again, I remember when Joe Wilson, that jerk off yelled, "You lie," and everyone recoiled and that was appalled by that. And it's so now we became the Joe Wilson of 2025, and that was a loser in 2009, and I don't think that's a winner or it's appropriate anymore now in 2025.
The times have changed dramatically insofar as what behavior I think is acceptable to the American public politically. So I would never compare what a norm was, honestly, more than prior to 2016. I think that entire playbook has to be ejected in terms of what is the American public willing to tolerate from public officials.
Yeah, I agree when it comes to the behavior in the room. I'm talking a little broader than that. I guess my point is, can't you stand and cheer for the 13-year-old with the brain cancer and then also the next day go out and say Donald Trump and Elon Musk are acting illegally, they're firing vets at the VA, Donald Trump.
Yeah, and I don't agree. I don't agree with all those things.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand what their upside is. I don't know what they get out of a lot of that chaos. I don't understand what they're getting out of it. But now they seem to be wanting to triple down on some of that kinds of thing. But I do believe, core is that if you become the party of chaos, you lose. And the second Americans decide it's like, people aren't going to vote for chaos. And
Actually, he said that was a loser. Who was the one that stood up and said, "You lie"? Which politician was that? Representative Wilson? Joe Wilson. Did he win or lose after that, his next election? Or what happened? Oh, is he still in office now? Member of U.S. House of Representative from South Carolina's 2nd District. Oh, he's still there. Well, I mean, then apparently nobody fucking cared. Based. All right.
If you continue to create more and more and more kinds of chaos, again, of course, there is going to be a backlash. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. You've kind of have a different. I defined your strategy the other day to somebody, and you can tell me if this is wrong. And maybe this isn't a strategy. Maybe you're just being you. As you're basically voting with the Democrats on most everything. A couple of things, no, but like most everything, you're voting with the Democrats.
No.
Talking about how they're annoying.
Not most of them. The border. I really pushed and got Laken. I was like the co-sponsor for Laken, and then Israel, absolutely. So not like most.
I just mean like people were saying that you were going to vote for the cabinet appointees, and again, on certain issues on immigration, on Israel, there have been policy differences from some in your party, but a lot of the times you're still. You endorse Bernie, you're still a pretty liberal person on most issues, right?
Yeah, well, that was more than that was 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah. I mean, and that was about very basic kinds of things. And like I've described, it's like the label left me. It wasn't that. So from eight years ago, the world was much different. People thought that it was unthinkable that Donald Trump could win, and he did. Now I would like to remind everybody, Trump won 2 out of the 3 last cycles, and he nearly could have won the 2020. Yep. So why? And I'm trying to figure out a way forward. Hey, I wish I had a deep blue state or a district, and I can yell and get on and be like, but that's easy, and then they can monetize that, and they can jump on an email and raise money for their campaign for that thing. But for me, I'm trying to find a way forward for our party, and I'm not going to be a Manchin. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to vote independent or doing all those kinds of things. So, but when you represent one of the most purple land in the country, and I stopped believing on like cheap heat online and just yelling just because I don't agree with it on the time. If you yell at everything, then everything just becomes absurd. That's why, does anybody call the police when they see or hear a car alarm going off? No, people ignore that, and it's like, well, something, whatever. So if everything, and the world is on fire, and that actually doesn't happen, people stop listening or just assume that's really what you do. So I want to be very selective. And now, like a constitutional crisis, the second the president defies the Supreme Court or any of that's literally the definition of a constitutional crisis. And I'd be the first person to just be like, no, we have So right. I think if you pick your own fights. So I like to believe that, your words will matter more if it's not always spending time yelling and saying that the world's going to end.
Yeah. What, I want to ask one more question about you going forward, but just one more thing about going back. You said you think the left or the progressives or whatever left you. Like, what do you think changed, right? I mean, because look, it's funny, in 2015, you were endorsing Bernie. In 2016, I was for Jeb, so like here we are. So something's changed, and people kind of wonder whether you've changed, but I guess you're saying that you don't think
Jeb voter spotted.
The progressives has changed, or have you changed?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, for me, if anything, what happened about Israel, what happened on 10/7, a lot certainly changed. I was shocked the way that members of my party, the way they behaved for that, and also the border. I mean, if you've been on my social media, I dropped a chart, and it's like, what's real chaos? 250, 300,000 people showing up at our border every month. That's the size of Pittsburgh. And now, that's that's chaos. And the Democrats had no answer to say, well, it's all going to work out. It's all just fine. Everything's fine. There's nothing wrong there. So that really that's true chaos. And
he worked on the Jeb
as
campaign.
my party tried to, I tried to warn that we're gonna be punished by this and trying to pretend that we're wrong. And I always knew we were going to get rolled on that bipartisan deal thing. Do you think Trump's going to give that away? I always say, like, I'm never going to pick a fine on fried chicken with Colonel Sanders. No, he owns the border and that's definitely too valuable for him to hand that away. So it's obviously we were going to get rolled.
Yeah. So going forward, one thing I wanted to ask you is, I was listening to some focus groups yesterday, and there were some guys that I don't know, kind of sounded like you. They're these kind of voters that they really don't like big pharma. They like Bernie. But they also really appeal to RFK. RFK appeals to them because they think that these kind of the big pharma, these big corporations are out to get them. These used to be Democratic voters. They're examples of these young men that now have kind of lost trust in institutions that are now becoming MAGA voters. And I'm wondering how you think Democrats could get them back.
I'm not sure. I don't. In fact, I'm not sure.
What? I thought he was going to tell us.
I mean, I've described it. I've witnessed that starting back in 2015, 16.
Yeah.
The longer it makes men, the more difficult it makes men to remain as a Democrat with some of the kinds of the climate and those things, and that's why they're gonna
So what would be your strategy to vote for you? Forget the Democratic Party. Like what kind of messages do you think you're going to focus on? That you think might resonate with them?
No, well, I'm not like a you should guy. I'm just like it's my own examples and the kinds of things that I happen to believe and those. And that's why I'm willing to talk to everybody. And that's not why I think that everything that comes from a Republican is bad or evil or it's terrible. And I try to find things that we can agree on. There's some things that we're not going to agree on all of those things. Yeah. But I promise you, a lot of the messaging that's being emerging since after the inauguration, I don't think that's going to be the kinds of messaging that's going to change our party in the ways that can avoid that we end up in a way not different than we were back in 2024.
What about the Bernie messaging since the election? Really just focusing on billionaires, focusing on these big corporations, focusing on big pharma, and how Democrats need to be the party of reform and going after the wealth gap. What do you think about that? Does that appeal to you at all?
Well, I think they've been there. Very, very, very bizarre. We were forced to spend till 5 a.m. to keep having all these empty show votes. Yeah. Trying to tie the Republicans to billionaires. I'm like, hey, they campaign with a billionaire though. I'm like, we love them. They announce it. They get in front of now they just went at the State of the Union speech. Hey, I love that billionaire. That's my partner. Do you? I think having all of these silly votes till 5 a.m, that never went anywhere. It all just vanishes and never goes anywhere. So like for me, like I don't agree with a lot of this messaging, and I just think for me it's not helpful. I'm just going to continue to try to find a way forward, but I'm not going to spend time yelling online and dropping silly videos or just.
Yeah, I hear it. All right, last thing. So you had lunch with Trump. And I don't know, he's easy to flatter, right? And afterwards, he's like, that guy is better than I thought or whatever. So I don't know. He's probably more likely to answer your call than mine, saying that he doesn't like he doesn't like traitors. But I'm wondering if you were to call him back up, is there a specific thing they've been doing these first 2 months that you are most upset about, that you would like them to change course on? Not politically, but like an actual substantive policy that you could try to persuade him on. What would it be?
I mean, there'd be a lot. There's a lot of things, but I don't flatter myself to think that like as a Democrat, a senator is going to carry how much weight on that. So I'm not sure. So like, there's a lot of things, but I don't understand what they're getting out of the chaos. I'd like to say, like, if the Republicans stop being dicks, they're never going to lose an election. And if Democrats don't stop getting kind of crazy or goofy or fringy, then they're never going to lose another election. It's like there's a lot of overreaction. So for me, I really don't understand a lot of the chaos. And then when they say things that are absolutely not true, you just diminish your own credibility. So I think if they make some of those small changes, but I don't agree with many of the things that happen. But when I do happen to agree that we do need to secure our border, and I do think we need to really stand firmly behind Israel. I agree with a lot of those things too.
So when you did talk, what did you talk to him about when you guys had lunch? What did you guys talk about?
We talked to a lot of different things. So for me, it was overall a lot of different issues.
Hi, baby.
But I talk to everybody as long as people are playing it straight, and that's what it was. It was a conversation, and
Like the border, or like his hair, or money, crypto. I mean, who knows? Like,
What did you?
No, and again, it's like that's one of the. I never divulge what happens in private conversations.
There you go.
Just say that. We always have to have honor amongst thieves, otherwise things will completely break down.
Yeah.
And I met with all of the secretary nominees, and we all had conversations. And I never just ran to the press or said things or did that kinds of things. It's like I play things straight. I will want people to play me straight, and as long as people do the same thing, I'm going to have a dialogue with virtually anyone.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and obviously, I don't think that your wish that the chaos will tamp down is going to happen. So, as more stuff happens, we'll hope to be talking to you again soon.
Very good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Meow. Okay. Well, that didn't really give us any good information at all. Do we care about this?
I love the notion of being a Democrat.
Maybe. I don't know. Okay. Ezra Klein, give us more hope. What's the liberal answer to Elon Musk?
Democrats have a problem that runs deeper than the 2024 election. They have a problem that runs deeper than Elon Musk's assault on the government. Look at the places they govern. Strongholds like New York and Illinois and where I'm from, California. They're losing people.
Since the pandemic started, California is seeing an exodus, a mass exodus.
In 2023, California saw a net loss of 268,000 residents. In New York, 179,000.
New York City is losing some folks, right? Some residents. But it turns out that New York State is also seeing the population drop.
And in Illinois,
Illinois residents have been fleeing the state at an alarming rate.
The state's population has been in decline for the 10th year in a row.
why are all these people leaving? In surveys, the dominant reason is simply this: the cost of living is too high. It is too expensive to get childcare.
It's almost like paying another mortgage.
It is too expensive to buy a home.
Very unrealistic to be able to put a down payment on a $2 million home with 2 kids surviving.
You end up having to live too far from your work. And so they're going to places where all of that is cheaper.
Every day, someone is moving to the Florida area.
She got an apartment 3 times the size of the one she had in Manhattan. Plus, there's a wraparound debt.
Yeah, I can definitely understand.
Go get that 4-bedroom, 3-bath house I had in Texas.
I know these families. These families are my friends. I've lived with them in these places, and I've watched many of them move away from the place they love, the city they wanted to raise their children, because they could not afford to live there. You cannot be the party of working families when the places you govern are places working families cannot afford to live. You are not the party of working families when the places you govern are places working families cannot afford to live. In the American political system, to lose people is to lose power. If these trends hold, the 2030 census will shift the Electoral College sharply to the right. The states that Kamala Harris won in 2024 will lose House seats and Electoral College votes. The states that Trump won will gain them. So in that Electoral College, a Democrat could win every single state Harris won in 2024, and also win Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and still lose the presidency. There is a policy failure haunting blue states. It has become too hard to build and too expensive to live in the places where Democrats govern. Our politics is split right now between a left that defends government even when it doesn't work and a right that wants to destroy government even when it is working. What we need is a political party that actually makes government work. Democrats can be that party. They should be that party. But it requires them to confront what they have done to make government fail. I could tell you a dozen stories. In my new book, I do. But let me tell you here just one.
Okay.
In 1982, so more than 40 years ago, California Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill to study what it would take to build a high-speed rail system across the state.
Make a choice. Change the chemistry of the country.
He liked what he saw, and so did California's voters. In 1996, California formed a high-speed...
This ended up being a fucking cluster. It's still not done yet, right? Is any part of it working yet?
Rail authority to plan for construction. High-speed rail is not some futuristic technology like nuclear fusion or flying cars. Japan broke ground on high-speed rail back in 1959. You can ride on these trains elsewhere. I have ridden on these trains. So in 2008, California's voters approved Prop 1A, which set aside $10 billion to begin construction on a high-speed rail line that would connect Los Angeles and San Francisco. It would run through the Central Valley. It would get there in under 2 hours and 40 minutes. And it would cost, they thought, $33.6 billion. California's High-Speed Rail Authority estimated we'd be able to ride that train by the year 2020. And the news kept getting better for high-speed rail. In 2009, President Barack Obama signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act into law. That had hundreds of billions of dollars to build the infrastructure of the future, and high-speed rail in particular had captured Obama's imagination.
Imagine boarding a train in the center of a city. No racing to an airport and across a terminal, no delays, no sitting on the tarmac, no lost luggage, no taking off your shoes. Now, all of you know this is not some fanciful pie-in-the-sky vision of the future. It is now. It is happening right now. It's been happening for decades. The problem is it's been happening elsewhere.
Sorry, hold on. I'm sorry, you guys don't understand this. If you're still listening, and it's getting late in the day, but you're European, in the United States, Americans have no concept of what it's like to actually take a train anywhere. They have just no idea. These are foreign. In fact, it wouldn't actually surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if you did a percentage thing that over 50% of Americans have probably never been on a train in their entire life. Actually, I don't think I've ever been on an American train in my entire life. I don't think I've ever been on an American train in my entire life. I've been on the subway in New York City a few times, but never an American train.
Not here.
Obama wanted it to happen here. And California, where the voters had already begun planning and funding high-speed rail, was the obvious place. And the political stars had just kept aligning. High-speed rail's foremost champion returned.
And the most expensive campaign in California history.
When Jerry Brown won back the governor's mansion almost 30 years after leaving it.
Now, 30 years later,
Are subways not trains? Subways are kind of, but not. It's different. Like in Europe, you can train through like huge distances, like places you'd ordinarily fly to. You don't really take the subway in New York City or like in Boston to avoid having to fly somewhere. It's different.
Within weeks of a revised business plan that will enable us to begin initial construction before the year is out.
But it didn't happen. By 2018, it was brutally clear that nothing was going to be rideable by 2020. And the cost estimate, it wasn't $33 billion anymore.
Wasn't it like 500?
It had risen and risen and risen. By 2018, it was $76 billion.
Next,
I feel like they spent an ungodly amount of money on this.
Let's level about the high-speed rail.
How is a subway not a train? Because subways are typically small things that are going inside of a city from stop to stop. Trains are typically things that you go from like city to city, or they cover much wider distances than what a subway traditionally covers, generally. But I mean, you can have subways that go long distances if you want, I guess.
The next year, 2019, Gavin Newsom, who had served as Brown's lieutenant governor, succeeded him as governor.
Right now, there simply isn't a path to get from Sacramento to San Diego, let alone from San Francisco to LA. I wish there were. However, we do have the capacity to complete a high-speed rail link between Merced and Bakersfield.
Merced and Bakersfield, a line no one would have authorized if it had been...
Who the fuck is going from San Francisco or from LA to Bakersfield? Who would even want to? Who cares?
The plan was presented in the first place. The latest estimate just for that line is $35 billion, as much as the entire LA to SF line was estimated to cost in 2008. And even this Merced and Bakersfield line, it's not predicted to begin carrying passengers until sometime between 2030 and 2033, if all goes well. I'm told now that finishing the LA to San Francisco line would cost $110 billion at least. California doesn't have anywhere near that kind of funding for high-speed rail. So they're building what they can right now with no idea of how they're ever going to finish. What went so wrong here? In October of 2023, I went to Fresno, California. And what I heard as I walked that track with the engineers who have built it and the people overseeing it, it wasn't engineering problems. It was political problems. There are parts of the high-speed rail line that intersect with freight rail lines. But the freight rail lines, they're so busy in the holiday season that some impose a construction moratorium from October to December. So in those areas, construction just stops for months every year.
If you care about traveling from one big city to another, aren't planes better? The advantage of trains is that they can stop at every town on the way. No. The advantage of the train is that 1, it's usually cheaper. 2, there's way more space. 3 is that I think it's, depending on the distance you're covering, it's generally faster because you can show up at a train station and just, you go through, you buy a ticket, and you hop on the train. You don't have to go through like TSA and security and all this bullshit of like, everybody's got to sit down and do our safety announcements and all. It's just, it's way, 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 way better. It's so much more convenient to hop on a train than to fly. Oh God, flying is so much more obnoxious than hopping on a train. And I think there are high-speed rails that might, I don't know if they go faster than planes or not, but they go incredibly fast. And they're safer and all that too, so. And your train station is like, you're just walking through a city. You can go to the train station. You can take a subway to the train station. You don't have to like drive to the airport. It's just so much more work for flying than it is for taking a train.
Why did the authority begin construction in the Central Valley rather than near the megacities? Well, one reason was that when California applied for federal money, the Obama administration wanted bids that would improve air quality in poor communities. And so the $3 billion the federal government offered, it wasn't really to build high-speed rail. It was to begin building high-speed rail in ways that addressed air pollution in specific communities. The Central Valley is poor and more polluted than coastal California. So federal funding went there, and so did the initial construction. But that made it less likely high-speed rail would generate the ridership, the political support, or the financial backing to ever actually finish. And that, of course, is bad for air pollution in Fresno and across the state. Trains are cleaner than cars, but high-speed rails had to clear every inch of its route through environmental reviews, with lawsuits lurking around every corner. The environmental review process began in 2012, and by 2024, 12 years later, it still wasn't done. What has taken so long on high-speed rail is not hammering nails or pouring concrete.
Good morning, all. Welcome to the California High-Speed Rail Finance and Audit Committee meeting.
Isn't America too sparsely populated for trains? Wouldn't it make more sense to have cars for short distances and planes for long distances? No. You don't have to build a train that goes to every single small city. Like, I should be able to take a train from fucking Miami to New York City. Like, I'm pretty sure if you look up, aren't there like 9 flights or 10 or 11 or 12 flights per day that go from Miami to either JFK, LaGuardia, or Newark? There's a ton of flights every single day from, that might just be with American Airlines. It might be even more than that. Does Amtrak not count? I don't know. People bring up Amtrak. I don't know what the fuck Amtrak Miami to New York. I don't know how many things they offer or how long. 27 fucking hours. What? I don't know what the fuck this is, but I would never take this in my entire fucking life. Yes, Matt J, you keep saying this over and over again. Trains have much higher capacity compared to planes. That's the biggest benefit. It depends on what you're looking for. I don't think that's the biggest benefit. Having higher capacity is nice. For me, it's the ease of use. It's not that, that I can have so much more shit. It's nice that you can if you want, but it's the idea that you can just like, oh, fuck it. I'm going to go buy a train ticket, hop on a train somewhere 2 hours away without having to go through security and all this bullshit. And you can take a train back if you want or not. You don't have to take a train back if you want. You could buy the ticket. It's so much more convenient. Yes, capacity is nice too, but it's not just capacity. The convenience of it, the speed of it, and everything else is nice as well. Like, you can't personally have more shit. He means that it carries so much more people. Well, I think you can have more shit, or at least in the ones in Sweden, you could fit quite a bit in that train, more than you probably would be allowed to in a airplane. Oh, but sure, they carry more people as well. Okay. What time would you expect on a train from Miami to New York? Why is 27 hours too long? I don't know. What does the highest speed rail run on? This is 27 hours. I'm pretty sure I can make this drive faster. If I were to drive from Miami to New York, it probably takes me 7 hours. If I'm driving to get to the border, I feel like I can make this drive in 17 hours. Miami to New York City directions. 18 and a half hours. I can make it in 17. This is almost like, how does a train take longer than my car? I feel like this should be like fucking, hold on. How fast high-speed rail France? Up to 200 miles per hour. So let's say 180. What is that, a 6-hour train ride then? Divided by 180, or maybe 7-hour train ride? Should be able to do it in less than 10, okay? Destiny, train schedule might not line up when you switch trains. Then have more trains. If more people are using them, then you just have more. Tons of stops? It doesn't matter if there's a couple stops. It's not going to be tons of stops. Or I don't know, maybe there are some retarded European countries that are like that, where I'm pretty sure that if you hop on a train, if you want to go to like, well, we can just fucking look it up. If I want to go from Zurich to Copenhagen train, Copenhagen. And then if we want to do Zurich to Copenhagen directions driving. So it's about a 13.5-hour drive. This would take about the same on train, although the train would be nicer, but I don't know how to search train tickets on fucking Google search though. But this is going through like fucking multiple countries and shit. And you can sleep if you want on the fucking ride. There's a big difference between regional trains and countrywide trains in terms of stops and cost. Sure, probably. That's not a good route. Yeah, I don't know what the best routes are in Europe. I just know that taking a train from fucking Stockholm to Gothenburg or Gothenburg, however the fuck they say it, and then coming back, that was a super easy, much better experience than having to fucking fly or having to drive if you don't feel like driving. The biggest reason in the U.S. is they don't give a fuck about passenger rail. All freight gets priority in U.S. rail, so they gotta make a fuck to build different tracks. Fuck them. Wait, did I just kill the video that we're watching? What the fuck?
Democrats have a problem that runs deeper years after leaving it.
No. Train in the center of...
Already estimated we'd be able to ride that train by the year 2020. And the news kept getting better for high-speed rail. In 2009, President Barack Obama signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act into law. That had hundreds of billions of dollars to build the infrastructure of the future. And high-speed rail in particular had captured Obama's imagination.
Imagine boarding a train in
the thing that sucks the most about this is Republicans and Democrats should be fucking fighting with each other over how to build the rail. With Republicans arguing that we need less environmental protections and we should be rushing it more and whatever the fuck, or let private industry. And Democrats should be arguing, oh no, the EPA needs to come in and fucking, you know, dig fuck the ground everywhere to make sure that there aren't like natives buried there or some shit. But instead, it's Democrats arguing amongst themselves on how to build the rail, and then Republicans constantly wanting to kill the project anytime it happens because they don't want public transport at all. It's so fucking annoying. Ugh.
Center of the city. No racing to an airport and across a terminal, no delays, no sitting on the tarmac, no lost luggage, no taking off your shoes. Now, all of you know this is not some fanciful pie-in-the-sky vision of the future. It is now. It is happening right now. It's been happening for decades. The problem is it's been happening elsewhere, not here.
Obama wanted it to happen here. In California, where the voters had already begun planning and funding high-speed rail, was the obvious place. And the political stars had just kept aligning. High-speed rail's foremost champion returned,
and the most expensive campaign in California history.
When Jerry Brown won back the governor's mansion almost 30 years after leaving it.
Now, 30 years later, we're within weeks of a revised business plan that will enable us to begin initial construction before the year is out.
But it didn't happen. By 2018, it was brutally clear that nothing was going to be rideable by 2020. And the cost estimate, it wasn't $33 billion anymore. It had risen and risen and risen. By 2018, it was $76 billion.
Next level, let's level about the high-speed rail.
The next year, 2019, Gavin Newsom, who had served as Brown's lieutenant governor, succeeded him as governor.
Right now, there simply isn't a path to get from Sacramento to San Diego, let alone from San Francisco to LA. I wish there were. However, we do have the capacity to complete a high-speed rail link between Merced and Bakersfield.
Merced and Bakersfield. A line no one would have authorized if it had been the plan that was presented in the first place. The latest estimate just for that line is $35 billion, as much as the entire LA to SF line was estimated to cost in 2008. And even this Merced and Bakersfield line, it's not predicted to begin carrying passengers until sometime between 2030 and 2033, if all goes well. I'm told now that finishing the LA to San Francisco line would cost $110 billion at least. California doesn't have anywhere near that kind of funding for high-speed rail. So they're building what they can right now with no idea of how they're ever going to finish. What went so wrong here? In October of 2023, I went to Fresno, California. And what I heard as I walked that track with the engineers who have built it and the people overseeing it wasn't engineering problems. It was political problems. There are parts of the high-speed rail line that intersect with freight rail lines. But the freight rail lines, they're so busy in the holiday season that some impose a construction moratorium from October to December. So in those areas, construction just stops for months every year. Why did the authority begin construction in the Central Valley rather than near the megacities? Well, one reason was that when California applied for federal money, the Obama administration wanted bids that would improve air quality in poor communities. And so the $3 billion the federal government offered, it wasn't really to build high-speed rail. It was to begin building high-speed rail in ways that addressed air pollution in specific communities. The Central Valley is poor and more polluted than coastal California. So federal funding went there, and so did the initial construction. But that made it less likely high-speed rail would generate the ridership, the political support.
While this is true, I'm assuming it's true, he's not lying about it, and we definitely have to do something to address like the bureaucratic hangups that we have in the United States when it comes to doing literally fucking anything. People are really critical about California for how much environmental bullshit or whatever, regulation or signage or whatever the fuck else there is. California did have a horrible fucking pollution problem that has gotten substantially better. Like there were smog alerts and shit. Like LA looked like Shanghai and fucking Beijing does now or whatever in the 90s. It was insanely fucking disgusting. And now with like fucking 5 times the people, it's way better than it was before. So not to say that like we should fuck everything up with environmental regulations, everything, but like, it has helped an insane amount.
Support or the financial backing to ever actually finish. And that, of course, is bad for air pollution in Fresno and across the state. Trains are cleaner than cars, but high-speed rail has had to clear every inch of its route through environmental reviews, with lawsuits lurking around every corner. The environmental review process began in 2012, and by 2024, 12 years later, it still wasn't done. What has taken so long on high-speed rail is not hammering nails or pouring concrete.
Good morning, all. Welcome to the California High-Speed Rail Finance and Audit Committee meeting.
It's process, it's negotiating.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
I would like to go over some important information for members of the public. Speakers will be called upon in the order that their hands are raised.
Good morning, Elmer Lazardi here on behalf of the California Labor Federation.
The International Brotherhood of Boilermakers.
So my question is, why do we have to wait almost a whole year later to find out that they're not in compliance?
Negotiating with courts, with funders, with business owners, with homeowners, with farm owners, with other parts of the government. Those negotiations cost time, which costs money. Those negotiations lead to changes in the route, or the design, or the construction, and that costs money, and that costs time. Those negotiations are the product of decades of liberal policies meant to protect against government abuses. And they may do that, but they also prevent government from building quickly or affordably. In the time California is failing to complete its 500-mile high-speed rail system, China has built more than 23,000 miles of high-speed rail. The Chinese government doesn't spend years debating with judges over whether it needs to move a storage facility. Its power leads to abuse and imperiousness. It also leads to trains. And look, I don't want America to become China, but I do want it to be able to build trains, as China can, as Europe can, as Japan can.
Step in! Train doors are closed, step all the way in!
The Second Avenue subway project in New York City.
This is the first major expansion of the New York City subway in more than 50 years.
It was the most expensive subway project by kilometer the world has ever seen. Has New York dramatically reformed its policies to make the next one easier and cheaper?
Ladies and gentlemen, next stop, 125th Street.
That comes with a $6.3 billion price tag, far more than Phase 1.
No, of course it hasn't.
Do you remember the Big Dig? What is the Big Dig? The Big Dig!
It's pretty hard to ignore the Big Dig. It is everywhere.
Did the decades of delay and the billions of cost overruns on Boston's Big Dig change how Massachusetts builds? Not really. California.
I mean, doesn't the EU build a lot of train but have similar regulations and bureaucracy? They might have more regulation and some larger bureaucracies, but I think the issue with the United States is that they might have more bureaucracy, but we have more bureaucracies. We have so many different levels of government, of city governments, of municipalities, of these city councils, there's just so many different layers that you have to intersect with in the United States. I don't know if in Europe, I don't know if you have those same problems in their countries where all of their local municipalities have so much power compared to like the actual state government or the federal government.
California has the worst housing problem in the country. In 2022, the state had 12% of the country's population. It had 30% of the country's homeless population, and it had 50%, 50, of its unsheltered homeless population. Has this unfathomable failure led to California building more homes than it was building a decade ago? No, it hasn't. In the last few decades, Democrats...
In the UK, our issues with high speed was that planning, permissions, and regulations cost so much. Yeah, I can't really speak much to your rails between places, but your standards for your subway system, or for the tube in your trains, are insanely high. Like every time I go to London, everybody bitches about how late the trams or the tubes or the subways or whatever the fuck are all the time. And by late, they mean like they're 2 or 3 minutes late, and they're running like every 15 minutes. I lived in Warsaw for 3 months, and I never felt like I needed a car a single time when I was in that city. And that was 10 years ago. No, 12, 13 years ago. Like you guys will have problems in Europe. When you guys in Europe complain about your problems with your subways and trams, and then you say like, oh, I get what Americans are complaining about. It's like when Americans complain about immigration and they say, oh yeah, we know what you're dealing with in Sweden and Germany and the UK. Like we have immigration problems too. It's not at all the same, okay? Your guys' standards for public transit and what you come to expect out of them are way, 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 way higher than American standards.
Democrats took a wrong turn. They became the party that believes in government, that defends government, not the party that forces government to work. This is an awkward time to make this argument. Elon Musk and Doge are trying to raise the federal government to the ground. Musk has been a loud critic of California's high-speed rail project, calling it a fraud, saying we should just let him build his imaginary Hyperloop instead. But in reality, he's never offered a plan that would work to build anything better or cheaper than high-speed rail. His alternative, in truth, is nothing. And I refuse to accept that this is our choice. A Democratic Party that will not make government work, and a Republican Party that wants to make government fail. What those two parties have created over decades is scarcity. Scarcity of homes, of good infrastructure, of clean energy, of public goods. But the difference between them is that the populist right loves scarcity. It is powered by scarcity. When there's not enough to go around, we look with suspicion on anyone who might take what we have. Look, Donald Trump could have run on more. He could have run on bringing Texas's housing policies to the nation. In Houston, there's no zoning code, so building is easy, and the average home sells for a bit over $300,000. Compare that to Los Angeles, where the average home now sells for over $1 million. Instead, the housing crisis became a cudgel they used to...
You have to, but then you also, and I'm sure he knows this as well, he can't talk about every single issue in every video or whatever. But like another issue too is that when you talk about making housing more affordable, you're also talking about severely damaging homeowners who don't like that. Like a lot of people don't realize this, including you guys who hate me every time I give this take, but people see when rents go up and people see when the cost of housing goes up, and the people that are mad get very mad about it on public forums, on social media, you know, kids at a graduate school, whatever. But the reality is the vast majority of Americans are homeowners or live in a house that's owned by somebody, and they actually enjoy those prices increasing. They're winning when that happens. So there's some percentage that are, you know, they call themselves the renters or they're never going to own a home or whatever, and you guys might be mad, but the vast majority of Americans are super happy with it because most Americans live in a home that is owned by somebody or that has a mortgage on it, and they're winning dramatically in that. But they don't really say anything, or you don't see their winnings, and it's like, yeah, so it's a really tough, you have to be, I don't want to say authoritarian, but somewhat authoritarian to overcome this issue. You have to say like, hey, listen, I don't give a fuck about what voters are voting here in this particular area because you guys suck ass. You're destroying our city. So fuck you. You're going to have to start making compromises, or you're going to have to start seeing the price of your house fall because this is unsustainable. But that's a really, really, really hard thing to do because you have to be like authoritarian in that manner. Yeah.
Against immigrants.
25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country.
As just one example, a vivid one, look at the explosion in rent in Springfield, Ohio, where Kamala has resettled the 20,000 Haitians.
Trump could have run on the success Operation Warp Speed had in speeding up the COVID vaccines.
Good one.
Instead, he's slashing government funding for science and medical research and firing scientists. He could have run on making it easier to build energy of all kinds in America. Instead, he's trying to destroy the solar and wind industries. He could have run on making it easier for Americans to make things and to trade them with the world. Instead, he's trying to cut international trade, imposing tariffs and alienating partners. Elon Musk is rich because of SpaceX and Tesla, companies that are built on federal subsidies. But he's slashing what government can do rather than reimagining what it can do. The answer to a politics of scarcity is a politics of abundance. A politics that asks what it is that people really need, and then organize.
As property values go up, so do the yearly taxes. It's a double-edged sword. Yeah, but homeowners want both ends of it. That's why in California, they fucking annihilated their housing sector with Prop 13. Because you're right. They'll say, oh, the housing prices go up. That doesn't actually help us. Now we're getting fucked over because we have to pay more taxes on it, ignoring the fact that there are other ways to pull money value out of a house, or you could just sell it. But God forbid we have to do that. So what do? Okay, well, Prop 13. Now taxes can't go up. So now you get to enjoy all of the benefits of having an increasing, appreciating value of your house. Your taxes don't really go up ever to match the new value of your house, and now you just literally fuck over everybody. Prop 13 should be nuked from orbit, in my opinion. Maybe California's other ways of dealing with it. I'm not aware of, but
organizes government and markets to make sure there is enough of it. That doesn't give you the childishly simple divides that have so deformed our politics. Government is not simply good at all times. It is not simply bad at all times. Sometimes government has to get out of the way, like in housing. Sometimes it has to take a central role, like in creating markets or organizing resources for technologies that do not yet exist and that we need and that are too risky for markets to fund.
Super true.
There is going to be pressure over these next few years as Elon Musk and Donald Trump dismantle the federal government to see only the sins of the MAGA right. And don't get me wrong, the MAGA right is dangerous. A resistance is needed. But so, too, is an alternative. If liberals do not want Americans to turn to the false promises of strongmen, they need to offer them the fruits of effective government. But if Democrats are to become the party of abundance, they have to confront their own role in creating scarcity. Liberals spent a generation working at every level of government and society to make it harder to build recklessly. They got used to crafting coalitions and legislation that gave everyone a bit of what they wanted, even if it meant the final product was astonishingly expensive, or decades late, or perhaps never found its way to completion at all. Then they explained away government's failures. They excused their own selfishness, putting out yard signs saying, no human being is illegal. Kindness is everything. Even as they fought affordable housing nearby and pushed the working class out of the cities they ran. To unmake this machine will be painful, but it's necessary. If liberals don't make government work, zealots like Elon Musk are going to come in and burn it down.
Look at what Austin has been doing with affordable housing. Hint, they just built a shitload. Is that true? Or has Austin just been massively expanding their suburbs? Because I thought like downtown Austin and those areas in the, oh God, fuck. There's a really wealthy area of Austin that all my podcaster friends live in, or the ones I used to be friends with. Fuck, what's it called? The Domain, I think is what it was called actually. I don't know. I feel like Austin has issues with affordability, but they just have that spreading out and building more suburbs is not the answer. You can do it in Texas because it's, because you've got a lot of space to build, but it just sucks. And then you've got to drive, you know, a long ways to get fucking anywhere. And it's, Texas is like the ultimate car state. Bro, if you're a European and you want to know what it looks like when a place is built for cars, spending any amount of time in Dallas, Austin, it's been a while since I've been to Houston, but holy shit. Like this is like an ordinary street. If you're in Texas, this is an ordinary street. Okay. Oh, I want to drive. Like here's my home. Okay. Well, I'm going to drive. And then here's a street here. And then I turn into like the main like road, and the road is like a fucking 3-lane going this way, and then like a double divided 3-lane this way, and then there's like an access street to get on and off. And this is just like an ordinary fucking, this is like a normal thing, and it's like everywhere. It's everywhere. It's insane. It's like, oh hey, like I live over here. I'm gonna go get Kyle, and then you know John and Kyle are gonna go. We're gonna go hang out with Sam. Oh, cool. Where's he at? He's across the street. Oh shit. Are you guys gonna walk? Yeah. It should only take us like 45 minutes to get there because we have to go to the next overpass or risk our lives dashing across the street with all the Chevy Silverados and F-150s. Jesus. What do they look like in Google Maps? Or some of these. I think they're called stroads, not the highways. Oh no, I guess it kind of is. Like if you live at like any of these areas here, Jesus. Like these are like normal apartment buildings. And then these are one ways, right? One way that way and one way that way. And then you pull out onto these like the larger lanes here, and then you hop on like these freeways. It's just a fucking nightmare, bro. Fuck this AIDS shit. Like, oh, I live here, or I don't know, you wouldn't live there. I guess you live somewhere over here, and if you want to go to like a neighborhood that's like over here, you're crossing. It's like a normal street, but then we have like our one way and our one way, and then this pulls out into a pretty busy street. What is this? 3 lanes on each side, and then you're. This isn't a freeway, but it's just like, this is like 8. I don't even know if there's a sidewalk. There's probably an overpass somewhere that you would have to find. Because I don't think you can walk down here. Or you're not supposed to, at least. You probably could, but... Dallas is worse. Yeah, DFW, that area is pretty crazy too. But it's just like, you can't walk anywhere. It's insane. A lot of places won't even have, they won't even have sidewalks. Like, I don't know if there's even places, like if I wanted to walk from this place to over here, or if I wanted to walk like along this road, I don't even know if there's, is this a sidewalk? Oh, this might be a sidewalk. There might have one here. I don't think it's a street. But some of them like won't even have sidewalks to walk on because you're just not supposed to. And then the endless suburban cancer sprawl. Fuck all this. Oh, Jesus. Sorry. Drop pins and then put them walking. Okay, basketball court over here. And we'll say we live... Can I get across the street? How do you walk? If I drop this guy, can I make him walk? That's not what I wanted to do. Right click. Holy fuck, this got mega fucked. I didn't want to do any of this. Okay. Washington, D.C. is pretty walkable, but why the fuck did everything close it? D.C. is actually kind of a nice city. I was surprised when I was there. I thought it was going to be super fucked. Okay, hold on, wait one sec. Fuck.
Hi, everyone. This is Pivot from New York Magazine and the Vox Media Podcast Network. I'm Kara Swisher, and it's tomorrow where I am, Scott Galloway.
Are you still in Australia?
I am still in Australia. I am still. The two of them sit down for an interview after an ex-user suggested the two should have a conversation. Musk said he'd be up for it if, quote, the show airs unedited after Stewart accepted. And obviously the show is always unedited, Elon. Musk proceeded to call him a propagandist, saying he used to be more bipartisan and sort of backed away. Let's listen to Stewart's fantastic response.
The guy who custom-made his own dark MAGA hat that he wears to opine in the Oval Office with the president who he spent $270 million to elect thinks I'm just too partisan. I'm really not sure what he thinks bipartisan means, but it's generally not, I support Donald Trump and also Germany's AfD party. That's not bipartisan, that's just the same shit. So I guess what I would say is this. Look, Elon, I do have some criticisms about Doge. I support in general the idea of efficiency and delivering better services to the American public in cheaper and more efficient ways. And if you want to come on and talk about it on the show, great. If you don't want to, sure. But can we just drop the pretense that you won't do it because I don't measure up to the standards of neutral discourse that you demand and display at all times?
Yeah, that was good. That was good. You know who's doing really well? I think comics have, like Stewart and Bill Burr has been really funny, and Bill Maher has kind of been up to, like, all Chelsea Handler, all of them are really handling it, like, really well, I would say, like, in a way that's funny, approachable, and also very pointed. I find them, I don't know, for some reason, quite good. I don't know if you do.
Yeah, they've been great, but I would argue, comedians have always played a pretty big role in culture and highlighting injustices of culture. I would argue the most important in that group is Bill Burr, because I think Bill has so much credibility across the conservative ecosystem. And he was constantly setting progressives' hair on fire with very very funny, provocative, and, whatever, inappropriate, say about comedian. And he's just gone off on Musk. And I think for me, it represents sort of the nadir of the peak or whatever, where the dialogue has really, really flipped. And people are coming. I do think there's sort of been a reveal. By the way, I wonder if Elon's going to bring one of his kids as a human shield to Jon Stewart. By the way, I don't know if
he's going. No, he's not going. He's saying he's too bipartisan. He's such a chicken shit.
Oh, yeah.
He's such a
I'll fight you anywhere in jiu-jitsu. Oh, no, never mind. I have a herniated...
Oh, yeah, wait. That was Musk, right? Did Musk say that he would take on Zuckerberg, right? Was it Zuckerberg in a jiu-jitsu match? And Zuckerberg's like, yeah, sure. And then Musk just immediately fucking pussied out. God, he's such a fucking loser. But I don't have to convince anybody that Musk is a loser, because conservatives don't even really like Musk. They just like Musk because Trump tells them to like Musk, so it doesn't even matter, really. Ugh.
It is. There's no way he's going to go on that show.
Yeah, no way. No, because he can't keep up. Stewart's too fast and too sharp for him. He's not. I think people should realize Elon's not. He's a very smart person, but in this regard, he's not. And
is he though?
Circles around him in a way that is embarrassing. Anyway, we'll see. In other news.
By the way, just because you didn't ask, I've been in Barcelona, Miami, and New York in the last 40 hours. You're not the only one who looks 110.
I saw you were at Mobile World Congress. I haven't been there in years.
Unbelievable event.
Huge event. Yeah, I haven't been there in years. I used to send reporters there. And what were you discussing? I saw you on the stage, looking very calm on the Supreme Court election. Like, what is he doing over there? Ads run by the group highlighting progressive values appear to be coming from supporters of Democratic-backed candidate, but instead come from conservatives. Musk's America PAC is the biggest outside spender in the race. The outcome of the election will have major implications in Wisconsin, as the court is expected to face issues surrounding abortion, voting rules, and unions. Liberals gained a 4-3 majority 2 years ago, if you remember that, and after 15 years of conservative control. I heard from the people who are backing it's a woman candidate for the judgeship, who are working really hard, who won the last time they had this fight. But the money from Musk this is where you're going to see it all across the country. People that are against Trump in some way this money is going to move in crazy.
But there's a couple of reveals here, or points, and that is one. And I've said this is one of my big themes for 2025. Democracy and rights have now become, the R is almost one. They're almost perfectly correlated with how much money you have. Because in almost every election in America, it's kind of 48% vote one way, or 49, and 48 or 49 vote the other way, and 1 or 2% swing the election. And lately, because of gerrymandering, it's 0.1% that swing the election. And it's fairly obvious that Musk and his ad targeting and $1/3 billion in key states leveraged by a platform, he probably decided, who was president, he's probably decided the geopolitical priorities for the next 4 years globally. So if you don't think that rights are directly correlated to money, case in point, Elon Musk. And then when you look at Doge and what he's doing in Wisconsin, there are people on the right, and they are intellectually honest. It's about politics for them. It's about a belief system. Whether you agree with them or not, you have to respect their ideals, and they're putting their money, their time, their treasure, and talent behind those ideals. I don't think it has anything to do with it here. And that is, if you look at Doge isn't about fraud and waste. The first thing they thought they identified on their wall of receipts at $8 billion was $8 million. And numbers 2, 3, and 4, people can't even verify. They seem to be false. But what they've managed to do really elegantly is
up to today, I still don't believe that Doge has posted any evidence whatsoever of any waste, fraud, or abuse found yet. I don't think a single shred of evidence has been posted for a single instance of this yet.
Regulators in autonomous driving.
Yeah,
I mean,
not
this
just
is so
that,
obvious.
all over the place. Yeah,
this isn't about ideology; it's about money. And by the way, that judge that he is trying to get elected.
I still don't know if I agree with that. I don't know. Maybe he could sell me on the idea personally, but the idea that it's about ideology or it's about money, not ideology. Like if it was just about money, I feel like the majority of the owners or the donor class or whatever in the United States wouldn't be okay with everything that's happened so far, because I think most wealthy people have probably lost out so far. If you look at the general state of the markets, and the winners right now are just like this hyper ideologically committed group of crypto dick sucks and whoever is hanging off of like Elon Musk's disgusting fucking dysfunctional testicles that he has to IVF all his fucking women with.
Like at Wisconsin, you need an exemption to directly own car dealerships, like most states. The regulators or the lobby for car dealerships.
I really think it's about ideology, not money. No, I don't mean to get that impression. Money is an important part, but it's like money and ideology together here are the drivers. It's not just money. And I don't even know if money is the overriding thing, because if it was, I feel like we'd see a different response. Right?
Very difficult for car dealerships to be vertically owned by the manufacturer because there's a lot of wealthy people and they think that it's good for competition. You have to get an exemption in Wisconsin. He has been suing in Wisconsin for this exemption, and if he gets his guy on the Supreme Court there, it'll likely be overturned. Folks, wake up. Money equals power, full stop. And this guy, it's all about money. It has nothing to do with his views politically or this all reverse engineers to I want my cars put on the road regardless of safety standards. I want Verizon kicked out.
I'm behind an AI. I would like this to happen. Yeah, I agree. I think people.
I mean, the Koch brothers have a lot more intellectual honesty than this guy.
They do. I think they actually believe some of their nonsense. Anyway, speaking of which, it's not just Musk. Google is urging officials at Trump's DOJ to back away from breaking the company up. Reps from the parent company, Alphabet, argue that breaking up the search engine could have
What? What do you want? Well, okay, I don't know what that means, so fuck you.
national security repercussions. I'm sure of that not. As a reminder, the Biden administration called for Google to sell off Chrome and make other business changes after a judge ruled the company to be an illegal online search monopoly. A federal judge is set to rule on what Google must change at a hearing next month. But it doesn't. The judge is going to decide this. But they put a donation to Trump's inauguration, and these people have been running from regulation for decades, 2 decades now. And here is what I consider a minor thing, a minor change that other industries have not been able to get out of, and here they are doing the same thing. So it's not just limited to Musk, although he's the most egregious example of it. But they're all sort of pay-to-play kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, they're doing what they're doing. They're trying to figure out a way not to be broken up. What's counterintuitive is I think shareholder value would actually go up.
You and I both, sir.
But the problem is the people in charge want to sit on the Iron Throne of all 7 realms, just not Westeros, and they get to decide. But Alphabet, while having probably more, maybe with the exception of Apple, more separate, independent, $100 billion plus independent companies that you could spin, they probably have 4 or 5. They do have an existential crisis, and that is their search share, or their share of search, fell below 90% for the first time. And AI is just starting to eat away at their share. And it is the ultimate example of the innovator's dilemma, where they essentially invented much of the original IP, yet they sat on their hands. And as a result, Alphabet's Gemini, their LLM, is vastly beaten by OpenAI, Anthropic, and even DeepSeek. And it's just, they got to be really kicking themselves at how did we let everyone get out ahead of us. In the latest earnings report, the stock tumbled by nearly 9%, and their revenue growth slowed. Has slowed since this time last year, and so they're facing their own.
You see, Sergey Brin was talking about everyone back to the office, and we got to hardcore it. He's one of the founders, was talking about the need to do that in order to prevail in AI. He even was sounding the alarms.
Well, this is, it really is, this company is, but here's the thing, the argument they will make when they get in front of judges, on earnings calls, they will say, temporary lag, look at this, everything's great, we're amazing, the power here is unprecedented. When they get in front of a judge next week, they're going to be like, oh my God, things are so terrible, you can't break us up right now, we're really
National
weak.
security implications. It's just, they come up with something every time. Like, we must have strong national champions. It sounds so, I don't know, Chinese.
Well, nationalist. Just a quick definition. People throw around the term fascist a lot. They use it to describe Carter, Obama. People incorrectly use it to describe certain aspects of the Trump administration. Fascism is extreme nationalism. It's a belief that someone you elect who, for whatever reason, his view of what's good for the nation should supersede the other party, any governance, any checks and balances, even the courts. Even you refuse to condemn violence against your enemies.
See, look, these guys, I don't know what I was watching, but I stumbled on one video of these guys. Oh, no, I do know. It was because we saw Kara on Piers Morgan episode. I was like, oh, this person seems reasonable. And then I stumbled onto this Bulwark with Scott Galloway and her, and I'm like, oh, these guys are speaking some truth, And I might not agree all the time, but for the most part, they're pretty reasonable. And then even here, he has an accurate understanding of kind of like if you were to employ or deploy fascism as a term, like what are we describing? And this is true. This type of you're ultra-nationalist and you have the only idea of how to run the country top down, even if that means the criminalization of political opponents or violence, green-lighting violence against them or enacting violence against yourself. True.
You condemn immigrants. That is fascism. It literally, kind of the current administration and their current policies are literally the textbook definition of fascism. So it's a word that's become overused, but it's absolutely appropriate here.
One of the things that I was saying, someone, I forgot to one of the questions, and they said, what bothers you the most? I said, well, a lot of times they competed. I was, as I go look back on, I'm talking about my book and stuff like that. Like they compete, like Steve Jobs competed on a product, right? Or tried to compete on the actual product. There's so many bad products. Like Tesla has not innovated. I said I'm offended by Elon because of Elon, but the car hasn't innovated, right? Very much, and that's why he's losing. Or Google Search hasn't innovated, and all kinds of products aren't better, right? There are a couple of them are doing a better job. I think Apple has come up with several new interesting products over the past 10 years, for example.
Have they? Wait, what's she about to bring up? Because I can think of phone, iPad, and the watch.
Pods, the watch, things like that. But they're
4 products in 10 years that are super innovative and industry leading, I guess, is okay. That's not anything to shake a stick at. So
now they're competing on oligarchy and access and proximity, and none of it's about
rent seeking is the competition now. How much access can you buy to the government? Not necessarily through or buy from the government, not necessarily creating a better product. Yeah.
The actual product. And that makes me, I don't know, I was vaguely it was irritating that this is the way they're going to get an advantage. And I get that's why, but it feels that's late stage. And it's a real turn for them that they can't compete on actual things. They have to get whatever angle they can in order to stay in business. Like Starlink, I want to be close to so I can get whatever I want. Although Canada just kicked him out. That Justin Trudeau has gotten a dose of backbone. Have you noticed that? He's extra adorable recently, I have to say.
There is a real void that people are stepping into. I would say Trudeau. I also say Macron is really stepping.
Yeah, they're looking very handsome. They're looking very handsome.
You're drawn to these individuals.
Well, they are. They're acting like leaders. They're not just because I like what they say, but
power is an aphrodisiac. I get it.
They're being clear and crisp and.
The real test. Are you hot for Starmer yet? Keir Starmer, who assembled,
I love him. I think he's adorable.
Who assembled world leaders? Yeah, pass a head up your ass. Not, I don't think 10,000 millionaires have left the UK in the last 3 months. But other than that, he looks like a leader. He's got big shoulders and good hair.
Yeah, the rich people like this stuff.
There are people stepping into the void. The leader of Denmark, the leader of Finland. There are people making really powerful speeches.
It's bringing them together, too. It's bringing them together.
And I'll say more about it later, but I do think the EU, and it's the silver lining here, is stepping into the morass here, or the crevice of the void.
The crevice.
Anyway.
Yes, it's the crevice. Also, there's a lovely video of Justin Trudeau making a maple milkshake.
Making out with Macron.
No, that would be hot. Anyway, all right, Scott, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, Trump's address to Congress, the Democrats' divided response with votes that they think were unimpressed by. Also, John Fetterman was unimpressed. Scott, we're back with our first big story. President Trump delivered a joint address to Congress this week, and for those watching, it felt like yet another campaign rally. He has got to get some new material. Over the course of 1 hour and 40 minutes, very long, Trump touted his accomplishments, revisited old grievances, and repeated lies. It was vintage. It was a good version of what he does. He praised Elon Musk and Doge, mocked Democrats and wokeness. He didn't unveil any future policies or plans. It was greatest hits, and it was a good version of greatest hits. We'll get to the Democrats in a bit. What did you think about the speech? And I'll just note, Trump also noted in the speech that he's working to end the war in Ukraine. And also cited a letter he got from Ukraine's President Zelensky, who apparently now is ready to come to the negotiating table. He's had to get the lesson in how to suck up to Trump, which is unfortunate. It follows this explosive meeting between Trump, Zelensky, and J.D. Vance in the Oval Office last week. The second most interesting thing J.D. Vance has done on a couch, according to the American people. Trump suspended military aid to Ukraine earlier this week, and he's cut off intelligence sharing as well, which is probably even more devastating. First, talk about what you thought of his speech and then the Oval Office situation.
Well, putting truth aside, and I want to circle back to truth, I thought it was a win for him, and I thought it was a loss for Democrats. I thought he came across as resolute, as strong. I thought he looked good. I thought he was forceful. I thought he was articulate. And I don't want to be one of those nations that digresses into a total fucking food fight in our addresses. I think that...
Are these... Oh, no. Fuck. Maybe I am just the odd one out here. Are they going to say that they don't like that some people were mean during the joint address?
It reflects poorly on the United States.
Get to the Democrats in a minute. Talk about him. Why do you think... I agree with you. Why do you think he did well? Even though it was the greatest hits. He did the greatest hits well, is what I thought.
Well, he came across as forceful, and we are now in a situation where I have friends who put out reels and just adopt every talking point, no matter how outrageous it is. But just a little bit of an economic reality check. He could declare America is back. Meanwhile, markets are tanking and the economy is selling GDP. The U.S. economy is contracting at the fastest rate right now since the COVID lockdowns. The Atlanta Fed has something called the GDP Now model, which estimates annualized growth. And it's gone from 4% up, which is remarkable, to negative 2.8 in the last month. Consumer confidence has had its greatest drop since COVID. Retail spending is down.
Eggs up. Trump take egg.
The markets are not in free fall, but definitely declining. The NASDAQ has lost 9% in 10 days. All of the gains since the Trump bump has...
Those are just the illegal immigrants that are leaving the economy, okay? That's all that is.
Disappeared. He has the greatest levels of disappearance.
Real American traders, okay, their stock market portfolios are on a huge, bigly increase.
Approval of any president except one other at this time in his presidency, and that other was Trump's first term. 52% saying he's ignoring the country's biggest problems. And just a little word search fund here. He mentioned Greenland 3 times more than affordable housing, veterans, or prescription drug costs.
Who cares?
Zero mentions of veterans or prescription drug costs. 5 mentions of tax cuts for billionaires. 5 mentions of illegal aliens. 6 mentions of the Panama Canal. 13 mentions of Joe Biden, and 3 mentions of annexing Greenland.
Panama. Don't forget Panama.
Based.
It is just, and my favorite was, the days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over. While Elon Musk sat in the audience. And my second favorite.
With a suit.
Free transgender speech. Mice. Go ahead.
Free speech, it's back. Forgetting that on a social media post, he said he would ban illegal protests at universities and that he has barred the Associated Press from the Oval Office.
And cut, was it all the federal funding from Columbia University because of their pro-Palestinian protesters or whatever? Gaza is speaking now, Kamala.
Unfortunately, our leadership and our politics and even our truth have become just who can lie the most with the most confidence.
He was an effective liar. That's what I thought. I'm like, he's lying excellently here. And it was like, so it was easily proven lies. The transgender mice thing was insane because it's transgenic mice and they put DNA. It's not what he was.
So what? So transgenic mice are any better? Right.
Describing it as. But of course, he wins the day because it's like transgender mice. And, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It was just when you thought the guy couldn't get any more craven, the emotional manipulation of that girl who had her face, her nose broken and got a concussion because of a spike from a transgender volleyball player. I just want to remind everybody before they clutch their progressive pearls. A couple years ago on this show, I said that transgender women should not be allowed to be in sports where there is money or scholarships on the line. I said that early and often, much to the disappointment of many of my progressive colleagues. I have said that early and often. At the same time,
wait, do we want illegal protests? No. If people protest illegally, then arrest them. Or would you cut funding from a whole school? This is an ideological funding cut. This has nothing to do with rule of law or anything. Come on.
Demonizing a transgender girl and emotionally manipulating and using as a prop another teenage girl to try and look at her. Isn't she beautiful? And she's a beautiful little girl and she had a concussion. And by the way, I played high school sports. The sport that has the greatest level of injury in the world
is high school volleyball. Say it.
School football. And high school sports are chock full of injuries. And again, see above, I do not think transgender women should be allowed to play in collegiate level. You can't have a 6'4" swimmer showing up and saying, I present as a woman to take every medal.
Let's get back to
My point is, that was just craven to create that sort of emotional manipulation and to demonize. You don't think that transgender girl who was the one who spiked the ball
terrible.
is probably getting fucking death threats right now?
Bad. No
one wants to hurt someone else.
It was
you don't use kids as props like that.
It was a cheap shot, as they say. Anyway, what did you think of the Zelensky thing? Speaking of beating up on someone and planning a ridiculous attack.
Purely orchestrated by Putin.
Yeah.
Purely orchestrated by Putin. I mean, just that was planned. Vance, who doesn't have... I mean, the only thing that gave me any sort of joy there was watching literally Senator Rubio lose all of his last
bits of soul.
Final specks of soul and respect for himself.
And then he defended it.
Knowing that TikTok would come up with every time he's presented himself as a cold warrior, and he just sat there literally melting.
Him and Lindsey Graham. I can't believe this. Listen, Foghorn Leghorn, closeted Foghorn Leghorn. Just go back to your closet.
That reminds me, what's the difference between a garbanzo bean and a chickpea?
What?
I'm not going to pay $50 for a garbanzo bean on my face.
I don't even know what that means.
Think about it. Think about it.
Why?
I still don't get it. Don't explain.
$50. I pay $50 for a chick to be on my face.
Okay. Ooh.
There you go. We'll get you there. We'll get you there.
I'm very simple.
That's good.
Yes, it was depressing. And the whole thing around the outfit.
I don't think very many of us
Let's
are
go
that
back
person.
to Zelensky. The outfit, which Musk was there, they just have no irony. Like, they had Musk there looking like a lesbian from the 1980s, a badly dressed lesbian from the 1980s, and then they're insulting guys wearing a military uniform, his country's military uniform.
We treated representatives of the Viet Cong with more respect.
I know, it's true.
Negotiations around the peace. You don't provide a world leader and then ambush them. It's just bad manners, and you lose credibility.
His people are like, good job that they went after him, and like, go fella. It's so ridiculous. Ooh, God, it was so weird. That was really, and then of course Zelensky's had to like walk it back and say it was unfortunate. And when I rewatched it, I was like, was he that difficult? And just to make sure, and I was like, no, they really egged him on. You could see it happening in real time. He certainly got a no-show.
Big medal.
Yeah.
We were giving you the nation's highest honor. Here you, and here's a statue made out of 6-karat gold.
Yes, yeah.
It's a picture. Look how fit and trim you are.
Yes.
We're giving you an honorary gold medal just for being awesome.
I know. Oh, it's so gross. It's so.
And by the way, just a few facts about Zelensky.
Yeah.
His grandfather fought in World War II. He lost people in the Holocaust.
Yeah.
He's Jewish. They complain about a lack of free press. Britain didn't allow. He has not banned any other press unless it's Russian propaganda, just as the UK did. They wouldn't allow fascist papers to run pro-Hitler ads while they were getting the shit bombed out of them. This guy. The greatest ROI, the greatest venture investment in history is America's mild, modest $60 billion, 70% of which is spent in the U.S., mostly red states, that has done the following. It's taken out a third of the kinetic power of Russia. It has given China pause, recognizing a small, motivated army that's technically literate and backed by the West. Think twice before you do it. And it is the best thing about all of this is that it is unifying. He is unifying Europe, and he is saying to people around the world. And by the way, just a quick tangent. I heard from this kid.
Okay, go ahead.
I apologize.
You're on a roll. Go for it.
I'm on a roll. No, this is just personal privilege. There was this lovely young man in my fraternity at UCLA named Greg Townsend. Just everybody liked this guy. We used to call him Townie. We went to the same high school. He was a year younger than me. Out of the blue, I get a message out from him saying, I have a friend who's a human rights lawyer.
He died.
On the pod. You know, every day people are
calling he died.
Who they think is fascinating to come on the pod, right?
He didn't die.
And I said, what are you up to? And he goes, well, I went to law school, and for the last 20 years I've been working for the UN, tracking down and prosecuting war criminals. I mean, what I remember about Greg was drinking a lot of beer and listening to Led Zeppelin. He's fucking hunting down war criminals and prosecuting them through.
You have impressive friends.
This guy, I was so moved. I'm like, okay. I immediately went off and said,
is it fair to say this lady is not getting away from the out-of-touch coastal elite charges right now? What? I think both of these people give really good grounded takes on how the electorate feels about things at the moment. What do you mean? Or what out-of-touch opinion or whatever do you think she gives? What?
How can I party in St. Bart's and make as much fucking money as possible? And he decided to go to Switzerland and get a law degree and then work with other good people to try
and how are we
going
to knit this together? Knit it together.
Yeah, and try and ensure that the incentive system is that think twice before you start murdering children and raping women under the context of war. And he tracks these people down and he prosecutes them. And then the cherry on top is that funding for his entire group has been stopped.
Yep.
And so he's not sure what he's going to do next. And you know what? The majority of him and his colleagues are continuing to work. Anyways, Greg Townsend, good for you, my brother.
But
very
impressive.
impressive.
The beating up of this guy is crazy. But they think it's like sport. And then the language that the Republicans use. People like Lindsey Graham and Rubio, who are very much supportive of this, have literally lost every bit of credibility. It's embarrassing not to be. And so they can say they were so mean to Trump. They weren't mean to Trump. They just wasn't. It wasn't. But that they think this is a win is pathetic. Anyway, speaking of pathetic, let's talk about the Democrats who tried all sorts of tactics during Trump's speech, none of which worked. Congressman Al Green was removed from the chamber after interrupting the speech, shaking his cane and shouting to Trump, no mandate to cut Medicaid. I didn't mind him as much. That's fine. Other forms of protest. Some Democrats wore pink. Some held up auction-style paddles that said balls and Musk steals. A few walked out during the speech. One lady was wandering around, this is not normal, behind Trump. It was juvenile. It was so, they were trying to make fetch hack, like completely. The whole thing. If you call someone Hitler, wearing pink is not the response, people. I'm sorry. It's just not. The only person I did think was a good job was Senator Alyssa Slotkin gave a Democratic response after the speech where she talked about the dangers of Elon and Doge. I thought she did an excellent job. Let's just listen to her, and then I want your response of what you thought.
While we're on the subject of Elon Musk, is there anyone in America who is comfortable with him and his gang of 20-year-olds using their own computer servers to poke through your tax returns, your health information, and your bank accounts? No oversight, no protections against cyber attack. no guardrails on what they do with
Okay, I
your
don't give a
private
fuck.
data.
I didn't give a fuck about this.
We need a more efficient government. You want to cut waste?
But also, I don't know who this maybe wasn't targeting people like me. I'm not sure.
I'll help you do it. But change doesn't need to be chaotic or make us less safe.
Thought she was great. That was the only high point, is a really nice response and a very clear, centrist, very focused on the audience, which is the American people. So tell me what you thought about this and what would have been an effective strategy here.
Look, one of the most powerful things about the presidency is they get the bully pulpit, and they get to stand up in front of the vice president and the speaker and the cameras and the music and the majesty, and they get to win every time they do it. And I think the whole thing reflected really poorly on Hakeem Jeffries and Democratic leadership, because they clearly have no control over their constituents, and their messaging is awful. We look terrible, Kara. We look reckless, immature, beside ourselves. You don't think that emboldens Republicans when they see us acting this way? What could they do? The bottom line is there's not a lot to do. You sit there, you're polite. There's probably a couple things you can clap for when they welcome whatever, a war veteran. You can stand up and applaud. And other than that, you just sit there.
Or you don't go, right? You could,
fine.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's a good idea. Eventually, we're going to digress to only half the chamber shows up.
That, I think, would have been good, too. Fuck that. None of the Dems even going. Hell yeah. Say they'll be there for the State of the Union. Every single time Trump does a fucking joint address, we all have to haul our ass down to fucking Congress and waste money transporting and security and all. Fuck that bullshit. Cringe.
For every presidential address. And I think there's a certain level of decorum. But this is, again, the Democrats have consistently shown they do not have discipline, and they do not have leadership, and they do not have good messaging right now. They haven't gotten their shit together.
The signs. I was like, ow, 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 ow. This is not going to be a viral moment. This is so bad.
It disgusted me when one of the squad put up the sign saying genocide when Netanyahu spoke. Whether you don't show up with
It's not
signs.
the place for it. It's not the place for it.
Anyway,
I like a good protest. Let me just
I thought
tell
it was
you.
a loss for us.
So what would be effective in the strategy? Just sit there quietly, or is there an effective strategy? I mean, obviously some people are doing things. Pete Buttigieg is appearing everywhere, it seems like. What would be an effective strategy from your perspective? Judge Carville's saying do nothing, play for dead for right now, because you're not going to win anything. You look stupid. That was good.
Well, there's tactical and there's strategic. On the tactical, you just show up, you're polite, you're the adults in the room, you nod, you get someone fantastic, as we did, to give the response. The response is a thankless job, because you just can't command the majesty of the lighting and the camera angles. She did a competent/good job. You sit there, you're polite, you have more respect for the flag and the rotunda than you do your tribal censors. And we did not do that. We showed that we were reckless, and we're like a kid coming home who is polite all day and then just vomits his or her emotions. Speaking for a friend who's a parent, and give mom and dad just like, who is this terrorist who just walked through the door? And by the way, in the parent teachers conference, everyone's he's just such a good kid.
I literally said that to Saul the other day. He was like running terror at the house. I was like, do you do this at school? He goes, no. And I was like,
they won't let me.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And then you read all these child books. It's because they trust and love you. I wish they trusted and loved me a little bit less.
Yeah, agreed.
On a strategic level, you pick one or two issues. Don't go after all these ridiculous DEI, transgender, Greenland, Panama. You go after a small set of issues. A surrender to the American brand now means surrender, measles, and inflation. And I would focus on those three things. I'd bring in experts, I'd be thoughtful, I'd be data-driven, and then I would fucking shut down the government. I would go upstream of Elon Musk and saying, no, we're not raising the debt limit. No, we are shutting down the government. You want to play hardball? Fine.
That's what the Republicans would do. That's what the Republicans would do. And they did, that's what they do. I agree with you. I thought it was embarrassing. I thought they're trying to create a viral moment. It was sort of like, hey, kids, look what we're going to do. And people should be relentlessly critical of this, of what they're doing. It doesn't have any discipline. I mean, they kept shooting to Nancy Pelosi, who did sit there quietly, by the way. Did you notice that? She
understands the decorum.
She looked sour, definitely. But
what the decorum? I disagree with this take. We're way past that. I think we're just way past that. I don't think that our popular candidates these days on the Republican side, obviously decorum has been absolutely and utterly abandoned. I don't know if on the Democrat side, I don't know if it's the decorum candidates, if that's the thing that's winning popularity for Democrats. But I don't know. I haven't followed a lot of other elections. Maybe they are somewhere. Maybe.
I have to say, I was thinking, this wouldn't happen under Nancy Pelosi. I'll tell you that. She was
distracted. She was trading options on Robinhood.
No, stop it. I'm just saying, she ran that place with the Democrats very tight. She had them tightly organized.
You know what the Republicans have that we don't have? They have synchronicity.
They do.
Synchronicity between think tanks, between their media and their leadership and their talking points. They are a well-oiled machine.
They are. They get on.
We are flailing around. We are, we define the term seizure. We're just out of control, our limbs flailing in different directions, and have no control of ourselves. And you watch what's going on, our response, and it's just sort of uncomfortable. It's like, okay, we got to be able to do better than this.
Yep, I agree. I had a really interesting back and forth with Mike Birbiglia over this, because I sent him Fetterman slams Dems unhinged protest during Trump's speech, and we were going back and forth. But what Mike was pointing out when we were going back and forth is they're not thinking of the audience, right? They aren't thinking, for some reason, the Democrats do not think of the audience, of what the audience is hearing and seeing, and they just weren't thinking of how to hit back in a way that's effective in some fashion that shows. They feel so non-genuine, and it's such a weak and sad response. I don't know.
But your analysis is the right one, and that is, who's our target audience? Mm-hmm. And the people
Mike who like
a 70-something-year-old congressman from Texas waving his cane, walking, and go, yeah. people, we already have those people. They're voting Democratic. Those aren't the people we need. Who we need is the person who voted for Trump and is now having second thoughts. And you need to be thoughtful, and you need to be...
I don't know if I agree with that, but this is always like the eternal vote. Like, I agree that appealing, obviously, as the ultimate cuck, center left, I agree that appealing to moderates is good, but I also think that turning out your own base is good, right? Like, Biden got more votes than Trump did this time, right? Do we think that a lot of people switched from Biden to Trump on policy? Probably not. Or that a lot of people just didn't vote because they were unhappy with the policy? Probably not. I feel like showing energy and having like that person or that dynamic where people feel like you're excited for whatever political program you have or excited for the political project that you're leading. I feel like that's important, but...
Measured, and you need to show we're the adults in the room.
Do you want measles? Do you want these hacker kids fucking with you? Do you like paying more for eggs? You know, Trump take eggs.
We're adults. We're reasonable. We're going to lay out the facts. We're not going to have an emotional response. We have emotional control because the people that loved and will applaud for this type, who are saying, you know, stand up, walk out, yell them, good for you. Those people are on board with Democratic policy. We don't need to convince those people of anything. We got to go after the people who voted for Trump
and be ubiquitous with the messaging. I mean, it was interesting. I have an idea for Kamala Harris for a podcast. So I think she should do a podcast called Recently Unemployed with Kamala Harris and go around and talk to people about the economy, go to places she's not welcome, and make herself a nuisance, like in that regard, like talk to them and go around. But I was thinking all of them have to feel like they're listening to the American people, right? That they're listening and they're present and they're responding and listening. I know it sounds like Bill Clinton really listened, felt like he was listening. I don't know. That's
my recommendation around what she should do is nothing. She's a reminder of how badly we fucked up. It would be bad. I'm sorry. And by the way, I saw Secretary Clinton last night at Shea Margot in New York. She just out of nowhere. I'm like, I know that woman. I want to go up and say I love her.
Did you say hi? Say hi to her. Say I'm Kara's friend. Say I'm Kara's friend.
I was doing my favorite thing. I was drinking at the bar alone. No joke.
Oh my, next time you're going up to her.
And I thought that her Secret Service people were going to attack like that tall, weird-looking dude who's alone drinking. Anyways, but when you lose, you take a break for a while because all she's going to do is remind people, quite frankly, of why we lost. And this is what Vice President Harris should do. Absolutely nothing until we have a Democratic president who appoints her to the Supreme Court. She's just not, from a quite frankly, no mercy, no malice brand perspective, she should do nothing.
I don't agree with you. I think she was just beginning to be, she improved a lot. I don't think she did that bad a job. I think Biden was
Agreed.
the problem.
Everything you're saying is true. And the reality is she's a reminder of the policies and reasons we lost. And she should just stay out of the line. In terms of just what's good for Democrats right now, she should quite frankly.
Well, a Democrat has to step up and feel ubiquitous.
Should Kamala Harris be leading anything in the Democratic Party? Maybe not in the future, but right now there's nobody. There's nobody. So insofar as we have no central figure to rally behind, maybe she can be until that person is found. Or maybe she can help that person be discovered, you know, if she's selfless enough, I guess, to embark on that political project. But we have nobody right now on the Democratic side. There's just nobody.
In terms of just what's good for Democrats right now, she should quite frankly.
Well, a Democrat has to step up and feel ubiquitous in the very least, and feel like they're speaking to Americans, right? Again, I think that's Mark Cuban.
You know who's having a moment, and you were right on this, and I was wrong. He's your guy, Fetterman.
Fetterman is. Not everything that he's doing I like, but yes, he is.
Well, then we vote him off the island. He doesn't align perfectly with my ideas.
No, sometimes he can be obnoxious. I like sometimes he can be a little nicer. That's all I'm saying. All right, Scott, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll discuss the latest on Trump's trade war. Scott, we're back with our second big story. U.S. automakers got a 1-month break from Donald Trump's 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. The tariffs went into effect on Tuesday, roiling markets and creating headaches for companies in the U.S. and around the world. Canada quickly announced retaliatory tariffs, with the very handsome Justin Trudeau doing it. Mexico is announcing countermeasures. She's also fantastic, the president of Mexico, this week. China is also taking action after Trump added 10% to existing tariffs. Trump acknowledged in his address to Congress that there would be a little disturbance from these tariffs, but he's okay with that. But then he turned it around, which means he only wants to sort of threaten America.
Why don't American parties adopt some type of shadow government, and the opposition, like in parliamentary systems, would be useful? First of all, Americans are very scared by words like that. Just uttering the word shadow government, a lot of Americans would instantaneously assume deep state. Fucking half the Trumples that I debated got lost their fucking minds because of the title of that article by The Atlantic. What was it? Like, these were the... Fuck, what am I thinking of? It was like, these were the shadow officials or whatever that helped to make sure that the election ran smoothly. And it just had to do with a whole bunch of people that were maintaining like integrity of electoral systems and everything. And people just read the headline to that. And they were like, oh my God, that was how they rigged the election. They didn't even fucking read. They didn't even read a word into that article. They just saw the headlines like, oh, shadow government, evil. Right? Yeah, it's...
American companies, it felt like. He's trying to like let certain people in and pay homage to him and this and that. So stocks have been on a roller coaster, as you noted, over the last few days, with Dow falling almost 700 points on Tuesday. The market's...
Oh, that's what it was. It was the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. Yeah.
it on Wednesday on the news that automakers were getting the exemption. It's such a fucking game. It feels so deep state and manipulative. And anyway, we'll see more exemptions. And if you're a CEO right now, it would be very hard to know what to do. Target and Best Buy CEOs are already warning about price increases. And is the rest of the world just going to start doing business without the U.S. if these tariffs continue? Warren Buffett looks like he's sick to his fucking stomach. The first time he didn't respond. He said tariffs were ridiculous and that it's a tax on the little guy. But then when asked about the economy, he's like, I'm not going to comment, which is bad news because Warren Buffett always gives the straight scoop on things. What do you think?
Put the moral arguments aside. We have established amazing economic trade relationships and trust and rule of law and reciprocal. When I'm in the Gulf, I have a speaking gig in the Gulf. And then October the 7th happens and I make some comments that they find disagreeable and they cancel the speaking contract. We have a contract. And nowhere in that contract did it say you're not allowed to say certain things. And then we point it out and they say, you're right, we respect rule of law. We've got a great trading relationship. We're going to come to a settlement. We have established really strong economic relationships with the world's largest economies over the last 80 years that benefits them and benefits us. And one of the key tenets of American capitalism and democracy is we believe in lifting up people all around the world. That economic prosperity, if it's shared, we all do just much better. And we have amazing trading relationships with the world's largest economies. And we are taking them and saying to those economies, figure out alliances and relationships and trade routes and supply chains and
without
legal
us.
Agreements with each other and go around us and exclude us and be less inclined to trade with us moving forward, because even if he drops these tariffs, they can't trust us.
Yeah,
they can't
trust.
They can't start clearing off all Jack Daniels off of all shelves and figuring out how on earth are they going to reconfigure the supply chain of cars. By the way, with these tariffs, cars are going to cost, if these tariffs hold, an additional $12,000 each car. What people don't realize, cars, General Motors cars, those big American trucks, the parts go back and forth across the Mexican and Canadian borders numerous times. So you're talking about another $12,000. More than half of America's produce comes from Mexico. Everything's about 99% of shoes in America are imported. You're going to see this
Crazy
everywhere.
stuff. There was, what was it, sledgehammers? It was like a bunch of something else that was so strange, and I had no idea it was made in Canada, besides maple syrup. I got that one.
The average U.S. household is going to see prices go up by $1,200 each year. And when the average household makes, was it $68,000 or $70,000, call it $55,000 after taxes, that's the difference between being able to go on vacation or not.
Yeah.
So this is,
So what about these exemptions? Because a lot of people feel that he is sort of trying to get companies in line with him, like make sure you're on my side.
Mob boss.
Mob boss. That's what it feels like. Deep state mob boss. Like, hey,
you pay me. And by the way, it started with Tim Cook, who kissed his ass, and all of a sudden the iPhone was exempt from certain tariffs in China. So basically what he's doing is saying, okay, who's willing to give me money? Who's willing to kiss my ass? And then I'll figure out a workaround for you. This is what a kleptocracy is. This is corruption.
It's not innovation. Again, not innovation. Not making better cars or making better anything. It's this ridiculous bullshit. I mean, the face of Buffett really haunted me when he was talking about it. Like, he's not a young man, and he's like, it was like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm 100 years old, and you're pulling this shit. It's just like...
I was a graduate student instructor in macroeconomics for Professor Christina Romer at Berkeley back in the 90s. And we used to talk about tariffs as like an obvious example of just how stupid we were. We bring up tariffs in the early part of the 20th century.
Smoot Hawley.
And we'd all, it was just so funny. We would kind of laugh at like, okay, wait, hold on, kids. This is what they decided to do.
This is like a little economy professor joking.
As if we had gone, it was like we literally tariffs were the economic equivalent of in the world of medicine of leeches. Like, can you believe they did this? Can you believe they thought this would work? And here we are again. Makes absolutely.
Do you know what's going viral is from Ferris Bueller?
Wait. Is leeches the best example there? Because weren't leeches actually kind of effective for what they did? I feel like there's probably a better comparison, like drinking mercury or something.
The Smoot Hawley section. Anybody? Anyway, there's a great scene that's going around where he talks about Smoot Hawley, and it was a disaster, and this is going to be a disaster. And then they're going to do exemptions, and then it doesn't matter, and then they're mad at us, and it doesn't matter. The whole thing is just, it just is so embarrassing. It's just embarrassing, right? So, I mean, this is where, speaking of rubber meets the road, when these prices go up, it's going to be problematic. And again, Democrats need to focus on that. Guess who did this? Donald Trump. Guess why eggs are more expensive? He tried to put the eggs on Biden, but he gets the eggs. Trump take egg is the other meme, by the way, the viral meme around thing. Anyway, the world will move on without us, is what they'll do.
Jack Zhang, I think it's Zhang, he's a professor at the University of Kansas, summarized it perfectly with respect to tariffs are essentially, yet again, another regressive tax, because lower middle income households spend 100% of their paycheck on these products. So again, they're the ones that get hurt the most. And he summarized it perfectly. He said it's a rich man's war and a poor man's fight. These tariffs, yet again, really target lower and middle class homes. It is a regressive tax. Low income Americans spend all of their money on think about this, produce, saving for a car, eggs. I mean, these are the people that get hit.
Cherry tomatoes, apparently. There was a whole bunch of really interesting that I had no idea to learn about. Anyway, it's a bad idea. We think it's a bad idea. And Aswath, I had Aswath on talking the same thing. Every smart person I know is like, this is, and now it's being run badly. The tariffs are even being run bad by letting people out, putting people in, and that means you don't have any credibility about it. It's a stupid.
And I wonder if they'll bring this up or how much this matters. The fact that we are tariffing our friends more than China, the people who we supposedly fucking hate. where's the logic in that? Is that like intentional? That's so bizarre to me.
Negotiating tactic, and you think it'll work. And same thing happened with Zelensky, where he threatened him, and now Zelensky has to apologize. That's not a good outcome. It doesn't matter that Zelensky folded. The fact that he had to fold is pathetic.
Yeah, this is a big thing too. I bring this up in all my debates. Even if we get what we want, it wasn't good. That wasn't a good outcome. We probably could have gotten it by not being pieces of shit. We're the United States of America. Again, these are our friends. You would never negotiate. That was the pizza example I gave, where I'm like, hey, what kind of pizza do you want? And he's like, wait, before you answer though, I'm going to kill myself if you don't say pepperoni, okay? And it's like, okay, we ordered a pepperoni pizza. That's not something you celebrate. You wouldn't brag to your friends like, yeah, basically, whenever we go out to eat, I always get my way. And they're like, really? What's your secret? And it's like, a Glock 17 with a full magazine and a threat to kill myself, because that's just what I do here. It's like, okay, well, that is one way to do it.
The same thing here. The fact that they put them out and then take some back, it's not a good tactic.
Moving to facts, all right? We get outraged. It's extortion that we're demanding rare earth minerals from Ukraine. Okay, I get it. But now let's quickly pivot to facts. Trump has said he wants $500 billion worth of rare earth minerals from Ukraine in exchange for continued military and political support. All right, a couple facts. The entire global market for rare earth minerals is 10 to 14 billion. A rare earth mineral mine takes at least 10 years to spin up. So let's just look at, okay, well, you're right, it's extortion, let's get angry, but let's look at the actual data and show just how ridiculous this is. This makes no sense.
Getting back to that thing, a lot of his points during that thing were things that sound good in concept but aren't ever going to happen, and it's lies ultimately. Anyway, it's time for last week's poll results. By the way, we asked each of you which of our hosts would end up dead on a season of White Lotus.
Oh, this is going to be a shocker.
I know.
This is going to be
I haven't watched White Lotus.
Did you see my?
I did. I watched it on a plane. I was very pleased. I was very proud of you. I was very proud. You did a great job, and you're reading. Thank God Jason helped you on that one. Thank God. But the answer was 56% of you said Scott would end up dead on a season of White Lotus. 33% of you said both of us, and only 11% of you said me.
Damn.
No surprise there.
Moving along, it's time for this week's Threads poll. Do you guys in the audience think Elon will end up doing an interview with Jon Stewart? He should. We think you should, Elon. Go ahead. Go into that lion's den. It'll be just fine.